Covering an area of over 600,000 square miles and handling more than 1,400 flights on a daily basis, all without the use of radar, the Shanwick Oceanic Control Area is a busy and complex piece of airspace. In a combined NATS Prestwick Centre and SBA Safety Improvement Initiative, this DVD has been created with a team of experienced oceanic controllers and supervisors, HF radio operators, ATC supporting agencies and airlines. The aim is to show the issues that affect Shanwick airspace, to assist pilots that operate within the airspace, and ultimately to improve upon our already high standards of safety and service. The DVD will focus on a number of key areas, and for ease of reference has been divided into a series of chapters. We'll take an overview of the Shanwick operation and look specifically at control of a standard westbound flight. We detail the southeast corner of Shanwick airspace and some unique problems it can cause. We look at how things can go wrong and what the implications are if they do. And we look separately at aircraft facing emergency and contingency situations. Finally, we offer conclusions and guidance. We hope that you enjoy this DVD. As we better understand each other's methods of operation, along with the risks and limitations of our respective tasks, it becomes easier for pilots and ATC to work in a complementary manner, an action of mutual benefit to all. The Class A Shanwick Oceanic Control Area, or OCA, is an ATC environment with no surveillance radar capability. CPDLC and ACARS data link communication is sent and received directly between controllers and the flight deck, and HF radio remains the primary means of voice communication. For those flights suitably equipped, ADS position report information obtained directly from the onboard flight management systems is received automatically at a controller's workstation. Flights which aren't ADS equipped will pass such information by HF voice communications. The Gander, Reykjavik and Santa Maria OCAs, where flights are similarly controlled, mainly without the use of radar and also using data link and HF voice communications, share boundaries with the Shanwick OCA. The Scottish, Shannon, London, Brest and Madrid flight information regions also bound Shanwick's airspace. Flights within these FIRs are controlled via domestic area control agencies under radar surveillance and use VHF voice communications. Parts of the Shanwick OCA are delegated to Shannon as the Shannon Oceanic Transition Area and the Northern Oceanic Transition Area, and to Brest as the Brest Oceanic Transition Area. These transition areas are provided with full radar surveillance from the delegated ATC agencies. Shanwick's controllers and ATC support staff operate from the Prestwick Air Traffic Control Centre, located on the west coast of Scotland. Shanwick share an operations room with Scottish domestic and Scottish military controllers.
November 254 Sierra Delta. I don't have a flight plan for you. What's your oceanic entry point?
Oceanic entry point is Dogal.
Your estimate for Dogal, your requested flight level and Mach number.
Estimate for Dogal is 1223, Mach decimal 80, flight level 400.
Oceanic ATC clearances requested and received via VHF are relayed between flight crew and Shanwick planning controllers through a small team of qualified support staff known as Clearance Delivery Officers, or CDOs. The CDOs work alongside the Shanwick controllers in the Prestwick Centre Ops room.
That's copy, stand by.
Shanwick, Canada 879, position.
Canada 879, Shanwick. Can you go ahead your 20 west position report, please?
Canada 879, position 56 north 020 west at 1550, flight level 350. Estimating 57 north 030 west at 1644.
It's important to note that all HF communication is relayed through separate HF radio stations staffed by HF radio operators. The main HF radio station used by Shanwick, using the call sign Shanwick Radio, is located in Ballygreen, near Shannon in Western Island. Ballygreen also has a VHF clearance delivery and frequency assignment capability. Shanwick Oceanic controllers do not use the same equipment as their Scottish domestic and military colleagues. As Shanwick cannot see the progress of a flight using radar, controllers rely entirely on all flights complying with their Oceanic ATC clearance. Aircraft must have the necessary equipment to enter Oceanic airspace. A full list of requirements is available, detailed in relevant state AIPs and the ICAO MNPS Doc 007. But essentially, before entering the Shanwick OCA, all flights must have their Oceanic clearance, a functioning HF radio and suitable navigation equipment. Shanwick's methods of operation are dictated by the diurnal flow of traffic across the North Atlantic, with a predominant westbound flow during the day and a predominant eastbound flow at night. To provide the best possible service for the majority of users, a system of tracks, known as the North Atlantic Organised Track System, or OTS, are designed on a daily basis for both eastbound and westbound flights. Shanwick are responsible for designing, coordinating and publishing the westbound tracks, with Gander being responsible for the eastbound OTS process. Further agreements are in place with Gander to define which levels are available for westbound and eastbound traffic depending upon time of day. Other tactical level ownership agreements also exist with Santa Maria and Reykjavik to integrate traffic leaving or joining the main flow. Shanwick procedures are explored in more depth when we look at the control of a standard westbound flight. We're going to look at the ATC procedures used during a standard westbound North Atlantic crossing. Our flight is a daily scheduled service from Dublin to Boston. Our aircraft, an Airbus A330, operated by Aer Lingus. Our call sign, Shamrock 137. The flight is due to leave Dublin in the early afternoon, but the sequence of events that will permit its passage commences many hours before this. At Prestwick, during the evening of the day before our flight, an ATC supervisor ensures the creation and publication of the westbound North Atlantic tracks for the following day. The westbound organised track structure will adhere as closely as possible to operator demand, detail of which is received at Shanwick in the form of preferred routing messages, or PRMs, every evening. Tracks will be created to take advantage of prevailing winds, avoiding headwinds in the case of the westbound design, and avoiding any significant weather systems and airspace restrictions that may apply on the day. This means that on successive days, the tracks can vary considerably in latitude. 5 or 6 westbound tracks are typically published, the northernmost of which is designated Alpha, with adjacent tracks to the south named Bravo through to Echo or Foxtrot. The track structure for the following day is normally published shortly after 2100 UTC. Westbound tracks are valid for flights crossing 30 west from 1130 to 1900 UTC. Around 3 hours ahead of the flight, Aer Lingus's operations file their flight plan. This will be based on the latest weather forecasts and the location of the published organised track system. On occasion, the planned routing might be at variance with the track structure. However, here the flight plan adheres to published westbound track Echo. The crew plans to enter Shanwick Oceanic Airspace at Pickle, exiting Shanwick and simultaneously entering the adjacent Gander Oceanic Control Area at 57 North, 30 West. Each day's published tracks are given a unique identity, known as a TMI or Track Message Identification. The TMI is a sequential number based on the Julian calendar, commencing at 001 on New Year's Day and ending at 365 or 366 on New Year's Eve. As this flight occurred on the 17th of January, the TMI is 017. As part of their pre-flight actions, the crew check they've received the correct TMI number and cross-check that their flight plan coordinates exactly match those published for Track Echo. These are then plotted on an oceanic airspace planning chart. Once on the flight deck, these coordinates will be entered into the aircraft navigation system.
Shanwick 137, wind 18010, clear takeoff from 16, bye-bye.
Clear takeoff 16, goodbye, Shanwick 137.
37 yeah, that's the rest of the way all the way up there. 7 applications more.
Following takeoff from Dublin, the flight is handed to Shannon Area Control for transit through Irish airspace. At this point, the aircraft is still under radar surveillance.
Shanwick 137, good afternoon, identified. Climb flight level 280.
Climb flight level 280, Shanwick 137.
All flights entering Shanwick airspace are required to request an oceanic clearance between 30 and 90 minutes from the oceanic boundary. Pilots can request oceanic clearance in a number of different ways. By data link via ACARS. At Shanwick, this is referred to as an ORCA, or Oceanic Route Clearance Authorization Request. By VHF on one of the allocated Shanwick Clearance Delivery VHF frequencies. By HF if outside of VHF range. The radio station responsible for Shanwick HF communications is located at Ballygreen on the west coast of Ireland. Ballygreen also have 2 VHF frequencies for communicating with aircraft that are in VHF radio range. If all else fails, pilots can make a request via the ATC agency with who they are currently in contact. This would then be relayed to Shanwick. A clearance is required for the entire transit of oceanic airspace. The request must contain boundary estimate, requested flight level and speed from entry, plus, importantly, the maximum level achievable at the boundary. If ATC imposes a restriction with which the crew cannot comply, or if a reported estimate changes by more than 2 minutes, the pilot must report to ATC as soon as possible, to enable Shanwick to reassess the clearance. On the flight deck of Shamrock 137, an oceanic clearance request is sent via ACARS. The flight estimates Pickle at 1516, requesting flight level 370, which is also the aircraft's maximum attainable level at this point. A Shanwick planning controller who takes information via a flight data display and a graphical data display, handles requests for oceanic clearance. The displays used are the human-machine interface for the Shanwick Automated Air Traffic System, or SATS. SATS assists Shanwick controllers in tracking the thousands of flights in oceanic airspace and is one of the most sophisticated ATC data processing systems in the world. When the clearance request is received, the planning controller selects the message and this raises the flight plan for Shamrock 137. For every request, the planning controller must ensure that clearances issued maintain separation and comply with both Shanwick procedures and the requirements of receiving ATC agencies. A conflict probe is made on the flight. This means that SATS looks for conflicts that would arise should the aircraft be granted the requested clearance. In this case, American 45 is estimating Pickle 14 minutes behind Shamrock 137. The minimum time interval required between these two flights is 10 minutes. But if SATS recognises a time difference that's within 4 minutes of the prescribed minimum, a warning is displayed to the planning controller. In such cases, the planning controller will restrict flights as necessary, sometimes issuing a not before time restriction directly to a flight as part of its oceanic clearance. In this case, however, Shanwick issues a requirement only to the transferring Shannon domestic controller to ensure a specified minimum time separation or time interval is applied at the oceanic boundary. The time intervals that apply may vary depending upon the speed differential between succeeding aircraft, the cleared routing and also environmental conditions. The Shannon controller will monitor the situation and, if necessary, instruct American 45 to adjust speed to ensure the minimum separation is not compromised. Although the probe raised a warning, there are no actual predicted conflicts should Shamrock 137 follow the requested clearance. SATS places a P on the electronic strip to indicate that the flight is provisionally cleared, and a new window appears which contains the oceanic clearance. SATS can send the clearance via data link, or for issue via either Ballygreen or via the clearance delivery officer located within the ops room at Prestwick. In this instance, the clearance request was received via data link, so the option to send by data link is automatically selected by default. The planning controller cross-checks to ensure that the SATS prediction is correct, and then issues the clearance. When the clearance is issued, SATS changes the P to an I on the electronic strip, and the clearance is sent to the aircraft. An oceanic clearance message is also sent to Shannon, advising them of the clearance. The final stage of the oceanic clearance process occurs when the clearance has been checked and acknowledged by the flight crew. In the case of a data link readback, SATS automatically removes the I from the flight data display. The crew of Shamrock 137 requested and received clearance via data link, but for demonstration purposes, a request for oceanic clearance was also made via Shanwick radio at Ballygreen. The radio operator at Ballygreen relays the request to Prestwick, and this is again displayed to the planning controller, who conducts a conflict probe on the flight. The flight is provisionally cleared on a requested clearance, but this time the method of transmission selected by default is Ballygreen. The clearance is sent to Ballygreen for issue via HF or VHF.
Shamrock 137, Shanwick radio. Shanwick oceanic clearance. Shamrock 137 to Kilo Bravo.
Sierra, via track Echo. From Echo, maintain flight level 370. Mark decimal 81. Lead back, please.
Shamrock 137 is cleared to Kilo Bravo Oscar Sierra via track Echo. Via Pickle, flight level 370, Mach decimal 81. TMI is 017. Estimate for takeoff is 1517. Over.
Roger, your readback is all correct. Shamrock 137, TMI 017, and just confirm
Your estimate for Pico, please.
Estimating Pico at 1517, Shamrock 137.
Roger, Shamrock 137, estimating Pico, time 1517.
Following receipt of a correct pilot readback, the radio operator returns a typed readback message which is received at the relevant Shanwick planning controller's workstation. On receipt of this message, the planner cross-checks the readback and updates the flight strip accordingly. Whilst the planning controller handles flights prior to the oceanic boundary, flights in Shanwick airspace are actually controlled by an oceanic en route controller. 20 minutes before oceanic entry, the en route controller will receive a first notification of the expectant flight in his inbound flight list. At this stage, the flight is checked to ensure procedural separation is guaranteed, that all flight level allocation and routing procedures are complied with, and all necessary coordinations have taken place. On the electronic strip display, grey boxes at the end of estimate times indicate a following flight has estimates that are within 4 minutes of the prescribed minimum separation. These will relate to American 45, although the en route controller doesn't yet know this, the flight being too far from the oceanic boundary for it to currently be displayed. Back at Shannon Centre, the radar controller also ensures the flight is at the correct level as it approaches the Shanwick entry point. At oceanic entry, ATC responsibility for the flight is transferred from Shannon to the oceanic en route controller, and the aircraft enters a fully procedural ATC control environment.
Shamrock 137, overhead Pico. Radar service terminated. Contact Shanwick
Radio 127.9. It's on the phone. 127.9. Thank you, Shamrock 137.
The flight is instructed to contact Shanwick Radio on VHF. The radio operator at Ballygreen passes the crew primary and secondary HF frequencies for both Shanwick and Gander, and a cell call check is carried out.
Shamrock 137 is CPDLC, Gander next, and we're flight level 370.
Shamrock 137 is Shamwick Radio CPDLC with Gander next. The primary frequency for Shamwick is going to be
5649er. The secondary will be 6622. Crossing 30 west, call Gander Radio on the primary frequency of 8831 with secondary 11279er.
Please call Shamwick Radio now on secondary first. Cell code check on 6622. Shamwick Radio.
Primary is 5649, secondary 6622. At 30 west, Gander on 8831, secondary 11279er, and we'll call on 6622 now for cell call. Shamrock 137. Shamrock 137, request cell call, Golf, Papa, Quebec, Romeo. Over.
Shamrock 137, cell call.
Shamrock 137, cell call check OK, cell call watch on 6622. Over.
Return out 5649er, make that your primary. Make that your primary, this is your backup.
5649er now, Shamrock 137.
Good day now.
Shamrock 137 on 5649.
Shamrock 137, good day, sir. Cell code Golf.
Quebec Romeo.
And Shamrock 137, cell call check OK, cell call watch. Thank you.
Although Shamrock 137 will communicate with Shanwick via CPDLC, the carriage of HF and the requirement to maintain a listening watch remains mandatory for flight operations within the Shanwick OCA. Unless directed otherwise by ATC, pilots flying in the North Atlantic FIRs will operate transponders continuously in mode AC, displaying code Alpha 2000, except that the last assigned code will be retained for a period of 30 minutes after entry into oceanic airspace. In addition, all flights operating within North Atlantic airspace are required to transmit position reports at each position or waypoint defined in the oceanic clearance. These are either transmitted by voice using HF communications or automatically through FMC or ADS position reporting. When Shamrock 137 crosses Pickle, its position report is automatically downlinked via ADS, and provided all elements are within tolerance, the controller will see an automatic update on the electronic strip display. If any element of a position report is outside tolerance, a conformance alert message will populate the message queue for controller action. American 45 is by now displayed above the Shamrock strip with grey boxes at the beginning of initial estimate times. This indicates the flight is following within 4 minutes of the minimum separation for the corresponding estimates of Shamrock 137. Later estimates don't carry the warning as the Shamrock is flying at a faster speed. Flights are also shown on the graphical data display, although it's important to realise that this display simply replicates exactly the data shown on the flight data display. It's a representation of position only and is not a surveillance radar tool. Aircraft equipped with CPDLC automatically establish contact with Shanwick. The en route controller monitors the flight progress throughout the Shanwick area and will action any requests for change that the flight makes. Here, Shamrock 137 is requesting to reduce speed from Mach 81 to Mach 80. A corresponding message appears on the en route controller's screen, and he selects the flight plan. A copy of the plan is made. In this copy, the controller changes Mach number to 80, and he makes a further conflict probe of the flight. SATS once again provides a warning regarding the American 45 following behind. And since Shamrock 137 is now requesting the same speed as the following aircraft, the system indicates the warning from current position to landfall. However, although American 45 is following at close to the prescribed minimum time spacing, the controller is satisfied that separation will be maintained, and he now coordinates the speed change with Gander.
Gander Oceanic.
Hello, Gander, it's Shanwick. Can I have track Echo, please? Flight level 370.
Yes, go ahead.
The Shamrock 137.
Yes.
Is at Mach 81 now, requesting Mach 80, please.
Mach 80 is approved for Shamrock 137.
Mach 80 is approved on the Shamrock 137. Thank you. Bye-bye.
You're welcome. Bye.
Once coordination has been effected, the electronic strip is amended to reflect this, and the clearance is sent to the aircraft. When the crew acknowledge they have received the clearance, the controller selects readback, and the SAT system updates the prime flight plan to reflect Mach 80. At a later point in the flight, the crew request to climb to flight level 380 and to increase speed again to Mach 81. The process for requesting and receiving clearance is exactly the same, and the en route controller performs the same actions, including the requirement to coordinate with Gander.
Flight level 380, Mach 81 is approved for Shamrock 137.
Flight level 380 at Mach 81 is approved and Shamrock 137. Thanks, Gander.
A restriction is placed on the flight to be level at flight level 380 by 57 north, 30 west. It's important that pilots understand what's meant by such a restriction. The controller requires Shamrock 137 to commence climb at a rate that ensures the aircraft will cross 57 north, 30 west, level at flight level 380. To reiterate, the flight must be level, maintaining flight level 380 before the defined clearance limit of 57 north, 30 west. Incidents have occurred in the past where pilots have still been in level change when crossing a specified boundary or position, or worse still, where pilots only commence the level change when reaching the specified point. The flight has been asked to report reaching flight level 380. As the aircraft reaches the new assigned level, the flight management system automatically creates a new CPDLC message for the crew to send to Shanwick. When the en route controller acknowledges this, SATS is updated to show Shamrock 137 level at flight level 380. Warnings relating to American 45 have now ceased, as although the other flight remains on track Echo, the same distance behind our aircraft, it's now 1,000 feet below. Shamrock 137 is approaching 30 west, and with it the boundary with Gander Oceanic Control. Gander are aware of the flight long before this, because of an automatic coordination process that took place a predetermined time before the airspace boundary. Following this data transfer, any change to the flight profile requires re-coordination with the next agency. Finally, the crew are given an automated message via CPDLC that service with Shanwick has been terminated and that Gander are now the active ATC provider. At this stage, Shanwick says farewell to another westbound transatlantic flight. The southeastern corner of Shanwick airspace is arguably the most complex part of the Shanwick OCA. The airspace, within which exist many crossing traffic flows, interfaces with 4 separate controlling agencies, and despite comparatively small dimensions, often accounts for a large percentage of oceanic traffic. When there is a high traffic demand for flights entering Shanwick via the Brest, Shannon and Madrid oceanic interfaces, the resulting traffic flows will invariably cross each other. Daily flights to the Caribbean, South America, Canary Islands and the Iberian Peninsula enter via Shannon entry points, crossing flights bound for North American, South American and Caribbean destinations entering Shanwick via Brest and Madrid. This inevitably results in a particularly challenging area to control in a non-radar environment. In order to manage demand effectively, a tactical traffic plan for all Shanwick airspace, with particular focus on the southeast corner, is made each morning. In the Prestwick Ops Room, a supervisor takes account of the most recent operator flight plan data to assess a more accurate picture regarding operator demand and predicted traffic flows. This information is accessed via interrogating the automated track tool for AFTN flight plan information and the remote computer access, or RCA terminals, which provide a link directly into the Central Flow Management Unit database in Brussels. From this derived information, a traffic plan will be created focusing on the allocation of levels, distributing the prime levels to predominant flows. On occasion, this may result in less optimal levels for the minor flows, but will ultimately benefit the majority of users. In order to rationalise these separate flows, the supervisor will look to identify any trends or common routings, following which a number of recommended tactical routes may also be designed. The rationale for creating these routes is the same as that for the creation of the main oceanic track structure, although tactical routes are not actually published to the North Atlantic operators. They are designed to assist oceanic planners in deconflicting traffic flows to maximise airspace utilisation, but are not mandated for use. Operators can view the current Shanwick tactical traffic plan located on the NAT's customer website, accessed by selecting the relevant link on the Shanwick page. So, for any given flight, what will be the consequences of the above planning? With the creation of tactical routings, there is a chance of a reroute. In some cases, this will mean the possible addition or removal of a 15 west coordinate and/or minor latitude adjustment. Changes to an oceanic clearance request will be highlighted to the crew by voice if delivered by the CDO, or specifically annotated if sent via data link. Crews will be required to reprogram the flight management system in compliance with the oceanic cleared routing, ensure conformance with any amended level and speed changes prior to crossing the OCA boundary, and, importantly, to keep ATC updated with any revisions to the boundary estimate. Failure to do this may result in deviation from the oceanic clearance. By far and away, the main causal factor of gross navigational errors within the North Atlantic is flight crew failing to update flight management systems correctly and subsequently following the flight planned route instead of the oceanic ATC clearance issued. Within the Shanwick OCA, the majority of deviations from route occur within the southeast corner. An oceanic clearance is conflict-free from ocean entry point to landfall and is procedurally separated from all other flights in oceanic airspace. There is no radar monitoring in Shanwick airspace, so it's of paramount importance for all operators to adhere to the clearance issued. The ocean clearance contains a vertical element, a lateral element, and a longitudinal element. If any one of these is not complied with, there is a risk of a loss of prescribed separation minima. To improve safety within oceanic airspace, operators can help reduce this risk by ensuring that they fully comply with all three elements of the oceanic clearance, applicable from oceanic entry to the clearance limit point. In most cases, this may exist many hundreds, if not thousands of miles away to a specified domestic landfall position. The Scottish, Shannon, Brest and Madrid domestic control agencies are provided with pertinent oceanic clearance information such as oceanic entry point, flight level, time for the boundary and any ATC restriction required that has been issued to oceanic traffic within their area of responsibility. These agencies should ensure the elements contained within the oceanic clearance are adhered to by pilots prior to transfer of control, although crews are also responsible for ensuring compliance or reporting if unable to comply. ATC incidents and losses of separation have occurred when a flight enters oceanic airspace at the wrong flight level. This greatly reduces safety margins, as an aircraft entering an environment with no radar surveillance at an incorrect level can remain undetected by ATC for a considerable period. To help reduce this risk, crews should ensure they're maintaining the correct flight level received as part of their oceanic clearance before entering Shanwick airspace. The interfacing domestic ATC agency should issue climb or descent instructions in good time to ensure this is achievable. In the event that level change instructions are not issued in sufficient time for the aircraft to achieve the correct level at the oceanic entry point, pilots are requested to query the transferring domestic ATC agency accordingly. Several risk-bearing incidents, resulting in flights entering oceanic airspace in direct conflict with other traffic, have occurred when the transferring agency has failed to issue the final climb or descent instruction to a flight in order for it to comply with the oceanic clearance received. If flight crew had questioned domestic ATC in these circumstances, and most importantly, prior to accepting transfer of communications to Shanwick, these serious events could have been avoided. The following scenarios have been used to help demonstrate oceanic risks. They're fictional, but are based upon real events. The vertical element of an oceanic clearance is the flight level. In this example, Alpha 1 is airborne from Santiago, northbound on Tango 9, and still under the control of the domestic ATC agency prior to crossing the oceanic entry point. Bravo 2, a southbound flight on Tango 9, is maintaining flight level 300, and Charlie 3, a westbound flight routing via Sivir, is maintaining flight level 310. The oceanic clearance for Alpha 1 issued by Shanwick was: Alpha 1 is cleared to Shannon via Begas, Lasno, Emper. From Begas, maintain flight level 320, Mach decimal 77. Alpha 1 is not equipped with ADS position reporting, and SATs can only display to the Shanwick controller what is expected from the oceanic clearance. Separation appears to be assured, but in fact, Alpha 1 has not achieved flight level 320 by Begas as required in the oceanic clearance. The flight actually crosses Begas, climbing through flight level 290 in direct conflict with Bravo 2. Procedural separation is lost, and it's not possible for the Shanwick controller to give effective avoiding action, as no radar surveillance is available. If the pilot of Alpha 1 had alerted the domestic controller that flight level 320 would not be achieved by Begas, Shanwick could have been contacted by the domestic agency in good time, and a safe solution could have been implemented. Alpha 1 is following an ocean clearance to maintain flight level 330 and is routing westbound, Sonot 57 north, 20 west, 54 north, 30 west. Routing south of Alpha 1 is another flight, Bravo 2, maintaining flight level 340. After passing 20 west, the track of Alpha 1 will cross that of Bravo 2. Alpha 1 requests a climb to flight level 360. Shanwick issues the following clearance. Shanwick clears you climb to reach flight level 360 by 5614 north, 23 west. This instruction ensures that vertical separation of at least 1,000 feet exists against Bravo 2 at the point where lateral separation is lost. ICAO defines the instruction climb to reach by to mean a climb must commence at a rate such that the specified level is reached at or before passing the specified position. If cleared to reach a level by a time, ICAO defines this to mean the specified level must be reached at or before the specified time. Alpha 1 correctly acknowledged the climb clearance, but is still in the climb passing 23 west. Procedural separation does not exist until flight level 350 is achieved. The second element in an oceanic clearance is the lateral element. This is the route from ocean entry point to landfall. The route within an ocean clearance may include an entry point change or a reroute from that which was flight planned. When Shanwick issues an ocean clearance via data link or voice, any change from the requested route should be included in the clearance issued. Based upon Shanwick and ICAO incident data, the most common causal factor relating to navigation error and lateral deviation occurs as a result of incorrect FMC programming, with the crew following the flight planned route instead of the ocean clearance as issued. As soon as a deviation occurs from the cleared route, procedural separation could be lost. In the non-radar oceanic environment, such a deviation may remain undetected for a considerable period of time. In this example, Alpha 1 has been cleared Etiki 48 north, 15 west, 47 north, 20 west. Bravo 2 is following the same lateral track, but 1 degree south of Alpha 1. Alpha 1 enters oceanic airspace at Etiki, but in error routes direct to position 47 north, 20 west. The domestic ATC control agency would not be aware of an issue, as the oceanic entry point, level and time have been correctly applied. However, as soon as Alpha 1 leaves Etiki, it's off course and in conflict with Bravo 2. Until Shanwick receives a position report from the flight, the deviation may remain invisible to them, stressing the importance of prompt position reporting, especially at the oceanic entry point. Automatic ADS position reporting does give an early indication to any non-compliance, with corresponding non-conformance messages received at the controller's workstation. In addition, a graphical representation, indicated by a white circle, depicts an area of uncertainty that increases in size until a further accurate update is received. However, in the event the ADS log-on process fails or reporting contracts have not been established, crews should be aware that Shanwick would not receive any ADS-derived information, including automatic waypoint reports. The longitudinal element of the oceanic clearance consists of the ocean entry point time and a cleared MAC number. It's important that the estimate for the entry point is accurate, and any deviations of more than 2 minutes are passed to ATC prior to entering oceanic airspace. This can be done via Shanwick voice communications, data link, or through a domestic control agency. It's also important for flight crew to advise ATC whenever an imposed time restriction cannot be achieved. Pilots are also required to pass time revisions for reporting points whilst within oceanic airspace, and a revised clearance must be sought for a change in MAC number. It's appreciated that for operational reasons, unavoidable speed changes are sometimes necessary. In these circumstances, it's very important that the change is notified as soon as possible to the Shanwick controller. The MAC number and any imposed ATC time restriction forms an integral part of the oceanic clearance and is a requirement to ensure procedural separation is maintained. In a non-radar environment, the handling of aircraft emergencies is reliant upon accurate information being provided to ATC. Shanwick controllers receive regular training in how best to assist a flight experiencing any contingency, and the following information may help to explain common methods of operation from an oceanic controller's perspective. For any emergency, it's accepted that a contingency manoeuvre may need to be flown before pilots have an opportunity to advise ATC of their situation. Other than in this circumstance, Shanwick have rules that state a controller can only issue a clearance resulting in less than the prescribed separation minima following the declaration of a mayday or a pan.
Shanwick, Alpha 1, pan, medical emergency, request immediate diversion to Keflavik, currently flight level 350, track Charlie, Alpha 1.
If a pilot hasn't already carried out an enforced manoeuvre or declared an emergency and oceanic separation minima cannot be applied, ATC procedures require controllers to ask if a pan is being declared before being permitted to issue a clearance that results in a loss of standard separation. This, of course, may take up precious time in dealing with the request. It's also important to note that medical emergency is not a term recognised by ATC, and flight crew will also need to declare a pan in these circumstances. If other traffic exists, preventing an ATC clearance for a flight to perform its requested manoeuvre, the controller will normally advise that no IFR clearance is available, request pilot intentions, pass essential traffic information, and suggest that crew adopt North Atlantic contingency procedures. At this stage, as well as considering operational factors such as the best direction to turn towards a diversion airfield, it may be useful for pilots to consider the following. When deciding a direction of turn, consider your position in relation to the organised track structure. For example, when a flight is positioned on the most southerly track, an offset to the south is less likely to have traffic to effect, and this may provide a better opportunity for higher flight levels for the contingency transit. For a flight crossing a busy NAT track structure, awareness of where the tracks are positioned will help in determining any contingency descent to avoid the main traffic flows and enable a NAT track offset if so required. It may also be worth considering that other traffic in the immediate vicinity may be adopting a 1 or 2 mile offset to the right of track in accordance with the strategic lateral offset procedure.
Mayday, 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 Alpha 1, engine failure, track Charlie, descending flight level 260, turning right of track, north of track Charlie. That's Alpha 1, descending flight level 260, track Charlie.
As far as is practicable, keeping ATC regularly informed of your intentions will enable controllers to provide as much relevant traffic information as possible. ATC may ask for the number of persons on board and whether special assistance is required on landing. In the case of a pan due to a medical emergency, information such as the age, gender and condition of the patient, plus whether any on-board medical assistance is being provided, may be requested. This information enables ATC to ensure as much assistance as possible is available at the destination airfield.
Andy, have you noticed there's a bit of weather ahead? It's about 80 miles away.
Yeah, that's quite a bit of weather actually there.
It is, yeah. Can you request an offset, please?
Whenever a flight needs to deviate from its cleared track due to weather, a request for a clearance must be made to ATC, providing details of the direction and distance in nautical miles required. Provided there is no conflicting traffic, a clearance will be issued approving the requested deviation, along with a request made of the flight crew to report when back on the original track, as per the oceanic clearance. When an ATC clearance to avoid weather has been issued, pilots don't need to apply the 300 feet height displacement detailed in ICAO weather deviation procedures. If no clearance is available, the crew requesting weather deviation will be advised as such, passed traffic information and asked for their intentions. Pilots can choose to continue on their cleared track or adopt the standard North Atlantic weather deviation procedures, deviating away from cleared track and alerting nearby traffic on 121.5 and 123.45 of aircraft identification, flight level, position and intentions.
All stations, Alpha 1 adopting a weather contingency, turning left of track Charlie. Presently flight level 320, going to climb at flight level 323, and that's Alpha 1 turning south left of track Charlie up to 40 miles due weather.
The Strategic Lateral Offset Procedure, or SLOP, allows for pilots to fly a 1 or 2 nautical mile offset to the right of their cleared track. SLOP costs nothing for operators, but when applied correctly is priceless in terms of safety, significantly reducing risks of collision. It can be used globally across North Atlantic airspace and is not limited to OTS flights. No ATC clearance is required for this procedure, and it's not necessary for ATC to be advised. To apply the offset procedure correctly, flight crews should make a random choice using means such as TCAS, communications, visual acquisition or GPWS to determine the best path to fly. This would be on the centre line, 1 nautical mile right or 2 nautical miles right of track, applying the offset outbound at the oceanic entry point and returning to the centre line prior to the exit of oceanic airspace. It's important to note that left offsets are not authorised under SLOP. If all operators utilised the procedure, the potential for collision during incidents involving level busts and opposite direction conflicts would reduce significantly. Optimal usage equates to 1/3 of flights adopting each option, stressing the importance of equal distribution across all 3 options.
Should we see what that is?
Yeah, we know what it is. Okay, so it says Alpha 1 cleared to Los Angeles via Sunot, random route 5920.
Right, so that's the route amendment that they were talking about.
Right, yeah, because the printout does actually talk about a route amendment at the end of it.
There we go. So
I wonder if that's
first waypoint. Do you want to read the others just to make sure?
Sure, there could be another one, I suppose, as well. So that's 5920.
5920, we'll check that one.
Many navigational errors that occur within the Shanwick OCA and across the entire North Atlantic are caused by incorrectly programming the FMS with the original flight planned route rather than the actual oceanic clearance. Technology based around Automated Dependent Surveillance, or ADS, provides some mitigation to this risk.
So, should I fix the flight plan first? And then
I think that would be a good idea. Okay.
So 5920, I think, is what you said.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me put that there. Yep.
5920. So if I put it there after Sunot, and then after 5920, 6130.
Yes.
Do you agree that's our amended route clearance?
I concur.
I'll execute that. We can see it on the map.
Okay, so it's just cutting the corner a little bit. It doesn't look unreasonable.
No.
Okay, well I guess one of the next things I'm going to do is just have a look to make sure.
Flights that are ADS equipped can be interrogated by ATC to obtain information on present position, level and route almost instantly through use of an ADS demand report. In addition to this, SATS has enhanced safety features which, upon receipt of any non-conforming ADS report, whether it be an event report, a periodic report or a waypoint report, will immediately display this to the controller. The use of ADS technology therefore improves safety by helping to raise controllers' situational awareness and enables them to spot and correct navigational errors and level deviations very quickly. Flights that are also equipped with CPDLC facilitate the transmission and receipt of specific pre-formatted and free text messages with minimum delay. This compares to non-ADS flights without CPDLC, which rely on HF radio alone, where standard message delivery and receipt can at times take up to 15 minutes. One other ADS function that enhances safety is the Emergency Periodic Contract. When selected on the flight deck, ATC are instantly made aware of a contingency situation. Additionally, position reports are received for the duration of the emergency contract selection, in most cases automatically every 10 minutes. This alerts Shanwick to any changes made to a flight's FMC. As we've seen, the Shanwick Oceanic ATC operation is a complex procedural environment. Over 1,400 flights transit Shanwick airspace daily, the vast majority of which pass without incident. The controllers working at Shanwick are required to have an extensive knowledge of ATC systems and procedures in order to safely and effectively control their traffic. As a pilot, it's important to have a basic knowledge of what happens within the Shanwick operation as a result of the requests made of ATC. It's also necessary to be aware of the limitations of a procedural control service during day-to-day operations and during flight contingencies. A failure to understand this could lead to errors, increased controller and pilot workload, and ultimately to compromised safety margins. Clearly, the manner in which flight crews work has a direct influence upon the ATC operation. Reported incidents, including large height deviations, gross navigation errors, lateral deviations, and speed and time events, continue to feature across the entire North Atlantic. International safety forums have long been established to monitor the safety of the ATC operation. ICAO groups, such as the North Atlantic Scrutiny Group and the North Atlantic Central Monitoring Agency, continue to scrutinize such events, providing detailed analysis with recommendations for review and actions by member states, ANSPs and ATC regulators where required. ICAO provides a wealth of information for operators regarding North Atlantic operations. State AIPs and the MNPSA guidance document NAT Doc 007 details minimum aircraft system requirements for flight in the Shanwick OCA. The carriage of operational HF radio is mandatory. An ICAO film called On the Right Track has previously been produced, detailing specific examples of North Atlantic incidents. Additionally, operators are encouraged to access the NAT ICAO Paris website at www.paris.icao.int, which contains updates to safety-critical information, including NAT Doc 007 and the Operational Errors Safety Bulletin, or OESB. NATs remain committed to improving safety, with continued involvement in many safety initiatives, working with other ANSPs, stakeholders and operators. Pilot controller work streams included as part of the Safety Partnership Agreement are just one example of this commitment. As we've seen, a number of key operator causal factors exist which can and do result in incidents within Shanwick airspace, and likewise across the entire North Atlantic. So, to recap, the major incident types and causal factors include entry at incorrect level, Crews are encouraged to question the transferring domestic ATC agency when they haven't been cleared to the flight level specified in the oceanic clearance. They should do this before entry into oceanic airspace and before transfer of communication to Shanwick. Misinterpretation of conditional clearance phraseology, such as climb to reach by a specified point. If in doubt, always seek confirmation from ATC. GNE and lateral deviations. Aircrew following their flight planned route instead of the oceanic clearance is the main causal factor for these types of incidents. Strict adherence to SOPs to ensure flights follow the ATC clearance instead of the flight plan will help prevent these events. Misunderstandings where the oceanic clearance begins and ends. This factor has contributed to many lateral deviations, especially in the eastbound phase. It's important that flight crew are aware of oceanic boundaries, in particular to be aware of the oceanic entry point and the oceanic landfall. Shanwick westbound oceanic clearances begin at the OCA boundary. Shanwick eastbound flights, routing via the Scottish, Shannon, Brest and Madrid FIRs, end at landfall. This is the point after the boundary existing within domestic ACC airspace. Unable to comply with an ATC restriction. Whether the restriction is based on time, speed or level, it's of paramount importance that ATC are advised as soon as possible. Informing ATC early could be the difference between maintaining and losing standard separation. Time amendments. Regardless of whether a time restriction has been imposed, flight crews must advise of any time change greater than 2 minutes from a previous estimate provided to ATC. Remember, procedural control is based upon accurate times being provided by crew. There will be times when ATC must cope with unusual situations, such as weather avoidance or aircraft in emergency. It's important for controllers to have some knowledge of the flight deck procedures that are used by aircrew when faced with such conditions. Likewise, a flight crew's appreciation of the controller's workload and methods of operation may also prove beneficial. When reacting to contingencies and emergencies, Shanwick will use established practices based on certain expectations of flight deck procedure. Such expectations will include that the flight crew will advise ATC as soon as practically possible of the contingency or emergency scenario. The declaration of a PAN or Mayday will be used appropriately. Declaring a PAN or Mayday as early as possible will improve Shanwick's handling of the situation and will negate the need for controllers having to ask pilots whether they're declaring an emergency. The flight crew have good situational awareness regarding the location of the OTS for that period, day or night. This is important for all flights, including those not cleared to operate along a NAT track, especially those flights overflying a NAT structure on a random routing which require emergency descent. Where pilots encounter adverse weather conditions, they may be required to adopt a weather offset. In such an event, it's expected that crews will adhere to the NAT weather avoidance procedures as detailed in NAT Doc 007. In relation to mitigation and collision avoidance, pilots should remember improved navigational equipment over recent years has meant that aircraft on North Atlantic tracks are flying their cleared routes with a greater degree of precision. Use of SLOP, the Strategic Lateral Offset Procedure, where pilots randomly choose to fly the centre line or 1 or 2 nautical miles to the right of the centre line, will laterally spread aircraft on a track and reduce the risk of a collision if a level bust should occur. Left offsets are not permitted and do not form a part of the slot procedure. The Shanwick ATC operation has an excellent safety record, of which NATS is rightly proud. But we know that in the non-radar environment of the North Atlantic, isolated incidents do inevitably occur, and we seek to do all that we can to minimise these events. We hope you enjoyed this DVD and found the content both informative and useful. Working together is the key to success in enhancing still further the safety of our oceanic operations. And we thank you for your assistance in helping us to achieve this goal.